Hello, I hope you're having a good time, whatever you were doing before you started watching this. And feel free to continue because you can absolutely watch this in the background. Um, Before I get started, I just want to explain. I had a plan for this channel. I was going to do videos every Friday at noon and live streams every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And I was surprised to learn that I can't do live streams until I reach 50 subscribers. So that schedule is still happening, but it's just on hold. And in the meantime, until I reach 50 subscribers, I'm just going to keep posting videos with no schedule pretty much whenever I make them, whenever I want. And I am going to be still doing the live streams, but I'm going to be doing them on another channel. I'll put the link to my other channel in the description. And the live streams are me offering free psychic mediumship readings, and you don't have to believe in that, but I was trained in a course where, even skeptics come out doing it. Anyone can learn how to be a psychic medium and learn about how it works and what exactly it is. And this woman, Ivy Rivera, has this whole curriculum where she can train anyone in 28 weeks. It's online and it's self-paced, so you can pretty much just you can join whenever you want. It's evergreen, although I believe the fall semester starts on October 12th. And I know she's doing a raffle where you can get in to take the whole course for free. I'm not being paid to say this or anything. I took the course myself, and I can attest to it being effective, because I've been doing free readings in those live streams, and I've been shocked at the response that I've gotten. People are actually enjoying it, and I'm saying things that apparently make sense to them, but I don't know what I'm saying. If I don't know if it's going to mean anything to them. I was trained not to care. It's not about their reaction, it's just about doing the work. So it's still very fascinating to get feedback, and hear that it made sense to them. But it's just something that I enjoy doing. I would like to do it on this channel because this channel is supposed to be about, for you. It's supposed to be about making videos that are helpful. In the meantime, I'm just going to be making advice videos until I get suggestions on other types of videos, but I'll do whatever you guys want. This is a For You channel. So this video is about abuse. And it's about how to tell if you're being abused and what to do if you are. So I'm going to go over some of the more subtle ways that people are being abused. Basically, by the way, if you have any questions about what I just said at the beginning, you can go ahead and ask in the comments, and I'll put the link, if I didn't already say that, to Ivy Rivera's YouTube channel in the description, as well as mine. So both channels will be linked in the description. But anyway, so abuse. I'm not here to label abusers. I'm not here to say you're living with a narcissist. I'm not here to say this is a sociopath. If the person does this, then they're this. I'm not going to try and prescribe or diagnose, and I don't encourage you to do that either. When figuring out if you are being abused, it is not your job to psychoanalyze your abuser and try and figure out what's wrong with them and what exactly they are. Sometimes it might be helpful, depending on the situation, but generally all you really need to worry about is yourself, and if you are making sure that you are navigating your boundaries properly and healthily. I think, in general, life is largely related to relationships and boundaries, just navigating those two things, as well as work. I feel like those are the main two areas of life, relationships and work, and they are interconnected. But boundaries are necessary in any kind of relationship, because any kind of relationship, even if it's a work dynamic, maybe you have a partner at work, maybe you have a friend online who you hardly ever talk to, they can take advantage of the relationship dynamic and abuse you. I can attest to situations where I've been abused in work, taken advantage of, and that doesn't mean that the people taking advantage of me were doing it on purpose with ill intent. All it means is that it wasn't right, and it was on their part coming from a bit of a desperate place. And this is how we can start. These are the main two issues that we have, is we start to sympathize with our abusers, and we start to think that we deserve it, which is a little bit like Stockholm Syndrome. But the whole I deserve it thing is very complex, because there are a lot of situations where you might decide that you deserve to be abused. So I'm going to talk about some of the ways that people get tricked. First, I'm going to talk about why we go there. So, you would think, well, that sounds ridiculous. Why would anyone think that they deserve to be abused? That's insane. What are they, a masochist? And no, it's actually pretty easy to decide that you deserve the abuse that you're receiving because, ow. I mean, that didn't really hurt, but it just felt like saying ow. I think when we are in a situation where we have to respond to someone's coming at us and they're saying something, we tend to think they must have a reason for coming at us and saying this. There must be some validity to it. So we do one of two things. We either get really defensive and shoot it down, or we do the opposite and we overindulge and we take it too seriously, what they're saying. The trick is we need to learn what is and what is not an attack. Because oftentimes we mistake attacks for like constructive criticism or advice. Maybe you just think this person is trying to tell you, oh, that tie doesn't look good on you, or, maybe you shouldn't be, I don't know, like criticizing the way that you work or whatever it is. And you take it seriously. You listen to them and you're like, oh, okay, I guess maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't. But then you might also get really defensive and say, hey, screw you. You shouldn't do either of these things because on one hand, you are blocking out potential constructive criticism. And on the other hand, you are overindulging other people. In regards to having boundaries with other people, and I apologize for jumping around a little bit because this is a little bit from part 2. I wanted to categorize this as part 1, are you being abused, and part 2, what to do if you're being abused. But this is a little bit from what to do. How I think of relationships with other people, how I think of other people, I think of them as sort of vessels of energy. And this is something that I learned from the medium that I mentioned. And it's actually a really useful way to view other people. Because if you stop taking things personally, and it doesn't even require that you have any kind of spiritual belief, all you really need to do is think about it logically, and you realize that taking everything to heart from people, I mean, that doesn't sound like a good idea. When you actually look at people's behavior, how inconsistent it is, how one day someone can be loving and compassionate, and the next day they can be cold and calculated and selfish. It's very hard to say confidently that people are consistent beings in control of themselves. So I see people as vessels of energy that can be manipulated by other energy. And you're either in control, holding your own and, balancing properly, or you're just kind of letting go of the wheel and other energies that are around you are going to drive you. You walk into a room where everyone's miserable, and instead of holding your own, you all of a sudden are miserable. You get frustrated. You just let your emotions kind of run away with you, and you don't really ever step in and say, is this really what I want to be doing and what I want to be saying right now? People are very, very fickle. They go back and forth like I've never seen in any kind of like trustworthy situation. It's not like a robot would ever do this. It's not like someone that is completely unbiased would ever do this. People are emotional and illogical, so do not take everything they say to heart. However, even though we're aware of this, we still have relationships with people. We still have connections, and we still care about each other. We care about how we make each other feel. So even when you could just say, oh, well, that person is just sort of malfunctioning right now. They don't mean this, and I shouldn't take it to heart. That is still a person maybe that you have a close relationship with, and you don't want to just say that about them and let it go. You want to understand why they're acting that way. You maybe want to help them, but that's not good either. It doesn't matter who they are, It doesn't matter what the situation is. We're all adults, I would assume. Obviously, this video is not made for kids. I could do a separate video about children, but this is for adults. And even for kids, we need to learn how to become adults. We can't just spend the rest of our lives dependent on other people. This is how abusive people are created, is that they think it's okay to manipulate and take advantage of others. And that is not the case. So it's interesting. Being spoiled can result in manipulative people as well as being neglected. If you are neglected, you sort of learn that you have to fend for yourself, and you become very, isolated and cut off, and you think that you need to take everything into your own hands. You can become very cynical and very manipulative. However, if you're spoiled, the same thing can actually happen. You'd think it would be the opposite, but that's not the case. When you spoil someone, they feel that they are owed everything, that they deserve everything. And they might not like hearing the word no. If they do, they'll find a way to negotiate. They never think that it's okay to just like not get what they want. They'll always find a way. And they don't care if it means using other people. They tend to see other people as a method of getting what they want. So in both cases, they're very manipulative and only focused on what they want, which is why you cannot overindulge and spoil your kids as much as you cannot completely neglect your kids, because in both cases, you are leaving them to become very potentially abusive to other people. Now, granted, we all have free will, I believe. And I believe that even in that situation where you're neglected or spoiled, in a way, in my childhood, I was kind of both. I had both sides of the coin there. And I did not turn out that way. I have always been very empathetic, and I've always cared about other people, and I can't imagine not doing that. I can't trace this back to anything. It's just the way that I've always been. I notice traits like that in some of my family, but I don't think that that's the reason that I am that way, because there are also a lot of traits that are not at all like that in my family history. So I believe that it's just up to you what path you want to take. And if you are someone who doesn't believe in free will, that is fine too. Like I said, you don't have to agree with everything that I say. If I say something controversial, I think most people believe in free will, but there's also determinism, and I understand that. I think both are true. I think that there is free will and there's also not free will. But everything's kind of an illusion. So, that's a whole separate debate. But just in case I lost you talking about free will, I want to make sure that you know that I'm not relying on that to be the case in order to make my point. My point is, it's not only the fault of the parents. You could have completely messed up, and still your child could turn out to be a very caring and compassionate person. That is always a possibility. However, that doesn't mean that you can just drop the ball, because it's still your job to help them. They're a baby. They can't do anything on their own. They need someone to be there for them, to guide them, at least a little bit. But you also need to respect boundaries in that case too, and know that they are their own person. I got the comedian George Carlin on my shirt. Just touched my shirt and thought of that, if you were wondering who this was. Anyway, this is one of the survivor's guilt issues, or just guilt in general, where people think that they deserve it. A lot of parents blame themselves. A lot of parents have abusive children, and they either are completely oblivious to the abuse, or they are aware of it, but they think they deserve it because it was their kid and they're the one who screwed up and it's their responsibility. On the flip side of this, we also have a lot of abusive parents and kids who think that they deserve it because it's all that they've ever known. And they have deeply rooted ideas from their childhood about how they deserve to be treated and talked to. And oftentimes that is caused by the parents. So we have to be willing to look inward and figure out where our triggers are and why we might think that we deserve to be abused. Because usually it isn't as simple as someone just offering you constructive criticism and you misinterpreting it. I can think of an example of when someone was talking to me in a way that was kind of manipulative. They were trying to get something out of me. They were trying to guilt me into doing something, and they called me selfish. And I spent the rest of that day feeling very guilty and wondering if I actually am being selfish. And looking back, that was completely wrong. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was exercising my own boundaries, and I wasn't being selfish at all. I was, if anything, more considerate than anyone else in that situation. And yet, I was called selfish, which to me is just a tactic that people use. And it's not always, like I said, this isn't about diagnosing the abuser. This is just about recognizing the abuse. So, you know, that person who did that, I think they're a very good person. I think that they're friendly and nice and generally compassionate. However, in that moment, they were just not exactly in control. And that's okay. Doesn't mean that you have to hate them or judge them or put them in a category in your mind. It is very exhausting to be that cynical where you're categorizing people as good and bad. You have to know that not everyone is the same, and people can change. You know, if you just recognize what people are in the moment and keep how you deserve to be treated at the forefront at all times and not take anything personally, you are going to be able to avoid situations like this. Because if you don't take it to heart and you stay rational, you don't get emotional, even when they're getting emotional, it can be very difficult. And it's okay in the moment to mess up. It's always okay to mess up. That's just what it means to be human. We're imperfect. And you have to realize that the abuser is messing up in that moment. That doesn't mean you have to take it. That doesn't mean you have to just sit there and let them abuse you. You might absolutely need to cut them off if there are consistent patterns of abuse. And you don't even need a good reason to cut them off. If you just don't want any amount of abuse at all, even if it's just one little mess up, you technically have a right to cut them off. Does that mean that it's unfair to them? Maybe. I mean, you know, if it was just really one slip up, but that also doesn't mean you didn't have the right to do it. At any given time, you have the right to set a boundary with someone or to cut someone off. It doesn't need to be a whole long drawn out thing, and you don't have to figure out if they deserve it or not. However, you want to make sure that you're also still being empathetic and compassionate. But don't ever get in your own head where you know that someone is bothering you, stressing you out, and you keep questioning if you really are justified in saying no. This happens a lot in situations where people are taken advantage of sexually. They think that, you know, if they can't come up with a good reason to say no, that they just have to let it happen. Not the case. You know, you always have a right to say no. You don't need to be able to explain it. If they want to know why, you need to tell them that they're being needy and demanding and that it's okay to want to know why, but they are not entitled to that information. It's your business, and it's your body in that situation. I'm not going to touch on the more known types of abuse, like sexual abuse, child molestation, shit like that. You know, that is, I think, talked about plenty. I want to focus more on the stuff that isn't talked about very much, and I've already touched on most of it. So I'm going to try and see if there's anything else that I haven't touched on, because I've been doing both. Are you being abused and what to do about it kind of merged together. I was hoping this would be more organized, like step 1 and step 2, but it is what it is. It's all in the same video, either way. So as long as I said it all in an order that made sense to me as I was saying it, hopefully it made sense to you listening to it. In conclusion, I want to wrap up, make sure I said everything. Okay, so if there are any situations at all where someone is talking to you and you think, this person is coming at me, this person is attacking me, the first thing that you should do is not look inward and say, do I deserve it? Is there any validity to what they're saying? You should stop and say, if you want to talk to me, you're going to have to come at it a different way, because this, to me, reads as an attack. In any situation where someone is saying a bunch of negative things about you, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. Because if it is true, what is wrong with the person saying it for wanting to say it? If that person had healthy boundaries, they would have cut you off a while ago. They would not have been sitting there building up resentment towards you and then taking pleasure in attacking you and unloading all of these things onto you, telling you that you're abusive and you're manipulative and you're a narcissist or whatever. You know, this happens a lot. People will say these things to each other and, you know, come at each other with all of this. And, they may tell themselves, you may have done this to people. You may be telling yourself that you're helping the other person by calling them out. But in reality, you're not calling them out so much as you are attacking them. And that is not healthy or productive. They're not going to hear that and actually make a positive change in their life as a result of it. You're not planting a seed, you're not helping them in any way, you're just attacking them. And they don't feel like they are loved or cared for in those moments either, if it is someone that you're close to. Just to keep that in mind. If you actually care about someone, you have to trust them. You have to trust that they can take care of themselves and they know what they're doing. And the best thing you can do is to live by example and make sure that your boundaries are intact. Don't let them talk to you in the way that you would have thought that it was okay to talk to them. So whether you're the person doing this or you've had it done to you, maybe you have had someone go off on you and tell you all these things that are wrong with you, they were wrong for doing that. Doesn't mean that you should judge them, doesn't mean that you should say, oh good, now I can hate that person. That's not the case either. You shouldn't hate anybody. Now that doesn't mean people don't do hateable things, I'll grant you that, but it's not healthy for you to take that on as a burden. It is a burden. When you decide to hate someone, it's like you've acquired another responsibility, and now you're responsible for that person, and that's why you hate them. You categorize people as good and bad, and then you are carrying that weight. Let it go. You're only responsible for yourself and how you are being treated, and you have to make sure that your relationships with other people are productive and healthy, and that they're mutual. You know, you're both giving to each other. You don't want to be taking advantage of anyone. You don't want to be, a one-sided friendship where you're just constantly asking them for things. You're doing all the talking, and it just feels like they're just, always maybe driving you somewhere. Be careful that you're not the abuser too. You don't want to be in a situation where you find out that you've been taking advantage of people. And if you are, don't be afraid to admit it. Just acknowledge it and stop it dead in its tracks. Doesn't have to be a whole thing. People love drama. And people love to gossip and be really toxic. And it's unfortunate because we really just end up hurting each other unnecessarily when we do this. So the bottom line is you never deserve to be abused. You never deserve to be attacked. You will always be supported by the universe, by whatever God you believe in, whatever higher power, if anything. And if you don't believe in a higher power, just know that you can feel confident that you should support yourself, because there is no higher power that wants you to be attacked. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be humbled. Sometimes we need someone to humble us, but we don't have to internalize that and then let it say, oh, well, now I deserve to hate myself. Oh, that means that I deserve to feel terrible. Or, oh, that person is right. That horrible, manipulative, abusive, angry, yelling, violent person is right. And I should go up to them and apologize to them. No, they owe you an apology for talking to you like that. Now, maybe you need to apologize too, but you definitely don't want it to be one-sided. You don't want them to think that they were justified in any way talking to you that way. I think I said everything. This was about the length that I was picturing it, so it seems about right. I was hoping to keep it a little under 20 minutes, but I could, this was an important topic. It was going to have to be a longer video, so thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. I might do a part 2 because this is a pretty complex topic. And when I am able to do live streams, maybe we can do a live stream about it and have a discussion, because I'm sure there are a lot of stories that you guys might have to share with me about situations you've been in. And I'm sure that, a video about this might be more interesting if there's interaction with people who have their own experiences to share. But go ahead and share your experiences in the comments here either way. I always read my comments, at least for now. I don't have too many that I can keep up with. Have a great rest of your day or night, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you.